Hello again, and it's time for another project. Today we're going to do some router work on this image. Now, I can't really tell you what it is because I have no idea what it is. My son's been away into Newcastle, here in the UK, Newcastle City, and this was actually on the wall of one of the public houses, one of the drinking holes that he went into. So he basically took a picture and sent it straight to me on my phone and said, "Dad, can you make me this, please?" So we're going to get on with it, and by the time he comes back in a couple of days, it'll all be finished and complete. I'm guessing, I've done a bit of research. Now, Newcastle football team, they are also known as the Magpies, and I'm assuming this is going to be a magpie. I've no idea. It is in a nice colour. This is all black, big orange beak. There's some light blue, orange, and all the white background. So bit of Newcastle colours in here with a black and white and a bit of orange and blue thrown in. I am not a football person by any stretch, but so I'm going to guess it's some kind of magpie. But anyway, it is what it is. Now, the wood we're going to use is recycled pine. You spend 5 minutes. When I get these pieces of wood, you can see there they're all marked and they're all quite rough. And I got quite a few of these for free, literally across the road. So you take 5 minutes to sand them all down, and it's worth the effort, and it comes out really nice. And remember, it's free wood, so we cannot complain about using free wood. Now, for the image itself, I printed it out. We stuck it down with painter's tape, and for me personally, I just like to use carbon paper. Nice fresh piece. Not that one that's appeared in all the videos. That is that dry. I don't think that would do anything. Oh, it's still working. Just about to see the mark there. So put your carbon paper underneath, place that on top, and draw around that with a pen. You can see from there, I prefer to use a biro because the blue just stands out nicely against the paper than using a pencil. Once we've gone around all the bits we want to do, we can just pull that off like so. And that way you can use that template over and over again. Also, just so I remember there, this would make a nice scroll saw pattern. If routing is not your thing, you can basically just cut all this out on a scroll saw, stick it to a backer, and you will get exactly the same effect as we're going to get now using the router. So there's all our image, nicely done out. We've drew around it all there. It's come out really nice. Certainly got no problems with that. The only thing I did do, and remember, these are just templates. You can modify these to suit yourself. There's nothing saying you can't do it. This one here was slightly over, and it obviously went over the framework that we're going to route out. So I traced all the image out, and then this one, we just brought it in a bit and drew it there. So it's not in the perfect place, but it's in the place where we're going to want it for this little project. As I mentioned, the framework, you can see there, Willie's just got a piece of wood marked out a frame. We're going to remove all this penciled out area, so that frame will appear at the same time as we're removing the back section. So that is our frame already made, and it's incorporated into this nice pine wood at the same time. Just get yourself a pencil, take your time to shade in the areas that you want to remove, because you will go away, come back and start clearing these out. We want them to stay there. They will be raised up by, we'll call it 3mm. This will be removed all around there, and these are painted these separate colours. Same with the framework, that'll all be painted black. Black for inside the eyes and a different coloured background. Now for the background, we're going to incorporate resin on this one. So we will remove all these shaded areas, and then we'll incorporate orange resin for the beak, white resin in there, and then white resin for all the back section. So nice bit in there, and it'll flow nicely and fill in nicely, and we will paint this black. So you've got the black and white of the magpie. I keep saying it's a magpie, it could be a totally different image altogether, but we're going to get on and get it done today. Now for routing out purposes, as always for me, I use these, I call them CNC bits. I think the CPC, something computerized program, something. But if you put in CNC bits, router, in eBay, Amazon, these pop up. And they come with different degrees. They do have a small shaft on them, a 3.175mm. Now that is the same size as your Dremel, and if you are using a Dremel with the router attachment, you can pop that straight in, no problem. For a 1/4 inch router, you will need what they call an adapter reducer collet, and it's basically just a tube like that. You slot your CNC bit into it. That has now got a 1/4 inch shaft on it. If your router is 1/2 inch, you want a bigger adapter, so we can pop that in the router, no problem. And we'll use this to do all the lines. Remember, on this one we've got some outer set up to the lines, and these ones we will be inset. So we're going to go up to the line there, up to the line there, up to the line there. This is the reason why we shade it all out. You can imagine going away, come back after lunch, and you'll start routing this out. Well, that will be the end of your project. Remember, we want the background removed, so definitely shading all your areas. We'll go around all this with this little 15-degree, and that's just the angle of the end there, CNC bit at 3mm. I made myself a piece of wood here. Well, I didn't make the wood, obviously. I've incorporated some slits in there, and that 3mm one is the same depth as that CNC bit, so let's call it 3.175mm if you want to be precise, and that is plenty deep enough for paint or resin. And I will simply pop my router on top of here, use that as my depth gauge, and that is the depth I will work at. You can obviously go deeper. If you want to go deeper than that, maybe go over it twice. Don't go too deep on your first cut, so you're just putting strain on your bits and strain on your router. Once we've done all the lines, we will do the framework as well. We'll talk about that just when we come to do it, and then when all those lines are done, we'll pop in with these little CNC bits just to get us going. There's quite a lot of clear out here, so we might change to something else. Personally myself, we'll pop one of these on, and that's ample enough to start clearing out all these other sections. And they obviously fit the same adapter collet, like so. I struggle to find them with these colour barriers on now. They do come without the barriers on, but they are exactly the same bit. Okay, so for now we'll start routing this one out, doing all the lines, and then we'll pop back and mention the framework, and then we'll do the end milling bits. Once that's all nicely cleared out, we'll give it a tidy up with something on the end of my flexi cable on the Dremel, an engraving bit, bit of sanding down, bit of just to round off these edges, and then we're going to get resin and basically fill it all in, and hopefully all those colours will come through. Okay, let's start routing this one out. Oh, and what I remember, it's 15 inch by 12.5 inches across. Right, so we've made it all the way around with that little CNC bit. Hopefully you can see from there, look, all those lines are all nicely cut out. And if you get really close, you should just be able to make out those pencil lines. Never route out on your lines itself. Okay, now all that's left on this top section regarding the CNC bit is to do our frame. Remember, we're just going to cut our frame, the line up there. And then when we remove all this backer section, just get a pencil and line that off again. That happens when you're routing. When the way I hold mine, I am rubbing it with a palm, the side of my hand here. So a lot of that gets rubbed away. So you might have to go around and fill it in again, just for the bits you need to remove. That's no problem. So there's our top section, more or less done, apart from the framework. We'll do that next. Just straight lines, nothing too spectacular. If you're a bit uncomfortable doing straight lines, personally myself, I'll just do it freehand. I'm not overly concerned if it's perfectly straight. Sometimes not being as straight adds to the character of the piece. But my old Black & Decker come with what they call a micro adjuster, and if I can remember how to use this, basically I have slots in the base of the router there. That would slide onto there, and that sits on top of there like so. And I can adjust these handles at the end, and that allows me to run that up there with the router, giving you, hopefully, if I just put that back, a nice straight line. I've used it the once, should I say. Didn't work for me, so I have about 10 of those because I'm on my 10th router, and I don't think I've used it just that once. So the other option is get yourself a nice piece of straight wood. You'll have to do it off the end of the table, and basically put your router into that corner where you want to start. Put your piece of wood up and then clamp that in place, and then go to the opposite corner, piece of wood up and clamp it in place. Like I say, it will be a bit fiddly, and you'll have to come off here somewhere towards the end. Imagine like so. I'm just doing this quickly just to give you a rough idea, and you can either clamp that to the table, obviously when you've played with it a little bit more, keeping them clamp ends away from there. Excuse me, come here. Wow, there's some tension on these boys. Right, let's look back where it was, eh? And that way you can just use that piece of wood as your straight edge when you come to route along there like so. And you take it off, turn the wood round, and do exactly the same for all four sides. Oh, proper workout with them bad boys. So that's just another option with your straight edge, but for me, I'll just do it quickly and then we'll be on for the clearing out bit. Okay, you can see from that we've gone round and we've done our frame lines. Now, it doesn't have to be too perfect. We are going to come in with an engraving bit just to tidy this up, and we can go along and nibble at that. Plus also the end milling bit we're going to put on now. That's ideal because it routes out the bottom piece and also the side bit. So anything that we're not too, maybe something like that, look, it's just, what's hard to tell really, just slightly out. We can just nibble at that as we come down when we come to tidy out. So that's plenty near enough straight for what we need for this little project today. So we're going to pop on one of those end milling bits. So we're going to remove the CNC bit. You will get a lot more projects out of that. And these are my end milling bits. These are just eBay or Amazon. Remember, there's different bits out there. Spiral up cuts, liner bits, profile bits. Just find one that suits you. And if you are just starting out with this routing side of things, don't waste money on fancy bits. Just try little end milling bits and CNC bits. They are all you need to get you going. Not forgetting your little adapter collet. So we've got a nice size one here, as you can see, and we're just going to slot it into the same adapter. Comes up to that barrier there. Like I said previously, I've got a nice packet here. It's got no barriers on, and they are identical bits. So we'll pop that in the router. You notice I've removed one section. It's the way I tend to do things. That middle piece there, look, we've removed all that. That looks more than 3mm for sure, so, but that doesn't matter. So we're going to set it to that depth and basically remove all the penciled out areas. Now there is bigger bits out there. I have these straight flush bits. They would rip this out no problem, and I mean it seriously. And you might get away on this one, but if you've got delicate bits, if you come in with a big piece, should it catch that wood, it will just chip that out, and that will be the end of your project. So personally myself, I just take my time, pop that one on. And remember, there is bigger bits out there. This one's actually 3 inches long, this one. That was a router bit at 3 inches. I put that in once when I was trying to make some bowls. I couldn't even hold the router. The vibration was just too much, so don't even ask me how I use them big ones here. And also you get these straight flush bits, nice little fat chunky things like that. You wouldn't get that into those tight areas, so that's obviously no good. But if you're going to clear this out completely, something like that would be ideal. Okay, let's just pop in this little end billet bit for now, and we'll see how it removes the rest of the shaded areas. Right, so we've gone round with our little end milling bit. I left that on for the full piece, and it looks like a small piece to do that amount of clear out. But once you get in the zone, just start nibbling away, most of it was popping off, no problem whatsoever. And you can see from that, it's left it fairly smooth. If you were going to paint this background, you might want to sand that down with a bit of sandpaper and stuff. But remember, we're going to pour resin into this, so we don't have to focus too much on the back, but we want to tidy these little sides up. Doesn't need a lot, as you can tell from that. Unfortunately, that was already on the wood, so we're either going to sand that down, or so I might put a little bit of filler in there. That will be painted black, so we're not going to see that bit. That is the only mark I can really find on this. Now, as always, like my previous videos, I just want to give it a general tidying up. For me personally, just these little cheap eBay special engraving bits. You'll get a pack of 30 for next to nothing. And I'll have to get one with a flat bottom on the end of my flexi cable there. This basically attaches to my Dremel, and I will go around with that and just give it a nice general tidy up. And then we'll come in with a bit of sandpaper, good old sandpaper. I personally just like to round off those edges just so you haven't got so much of a lip on it. And we might even come over with a bit of mouse sander with this perfect sanding paper that fits perfect, as you can see from that. So we'll do a nice tidy up first, and then we'll look into the painting and resin side of things. Okay, that's all our general tidying up. So we went in with the little engraving bits, just get right into those corner areas. Nice mouse sander and a little bit of sandpaper. And you can see from that, we've cleared all those pencil lines off. And I've also rounded off these edges with that sandpaper. It just takes that little sharp lip off. So we are ready now to basically paint this and resin. Now the painting side of things are literally the main head itself of the bird, or we'll call them body sections, even though it looks like he's got little legs that are running. These two are black, I believe, and there's two black here. This will be orange, or is it blue? This will be blue, that will be blue. This little piece is orange. So for that, just acrylic paints we'll probably have to go over it a couple of times to do all those top sections. And then for the backing bit, that will be a white acrylic mixed in with resin. And for the beak itself, that one section there and the eyes, they will be orange, and the eyes, they will be white resin. Just forgot about those at the last minute. And for the frame itself, you know it's coming, bit of dark teak all the way around, not forgetting to do all those side sections. Okay, we'll go into the painting first and then come back, and we're going to spray a bit of varnish on, just give it a bit of extra shine, and hopefully seal this wood. That'll just stop the resin with so many bubbles. Personally myself likes a pine and plywood. I've never had any issues, but for now we're going to paint it all up. Right, that's all our painting done. Personally myself, I would have gone with the Painter's Touch paint. It would have been a lot easier. With acrylic paints on bare wood, it's took me 3 or 4 coats. But they dry fairly quick, so you can do one, and I tend to move on to another colour, and then come back to that one, another coat, back to that one, and so on. But it's all more or less there. The good thing about acrylic, you can still see that grain underneath. So there is that. And this piece here, we should have probably gone over that with a little more black, but I'm just going to chance that and spray the varnish straight on. And for the side frame, that dark teak stain, that goes on really easy. Normally I would cover the back at the same time, but I'm going to route out or put a little hanger in there, so we'll leave that one for now. So the next stage is just going to spray some varnish on this. There's 2 reasons. As you know, personally myself, I do like a bit of a shine to a project. It just makes it look like it's finished. It's not so much for protection. This will be an indoor piece. If you're going to put this outdoors, one, I wouldn't do it with the resin inside. That will fade in time with the UV light. So they say. I have done projects for friends of mine, and they've had them outside for over a year and a half now, and they reckon the resin is still a nice, vibrant colour. Well, otherwise, plenty of sun on it, they will fade in time. But there you go, that's proved the manufacturers wrong. So for now, we're just going to spray all this. This is my favourite at the moment, only because it's what the shop have in. So clear lacquer spray. I will take this outside, give it 3 or 4 coats, let it dry in between. It dries fairly quick. This will darken this framework down really nice, and hopefully darken that black at the same time. And we spray the full piece, no messing about. And obviously this will help seal the wood to stop too many of those little bubbles in the resin. Personally myself, you don't get a lot of it. Don't forget to do the side sections. You notice here, when we've done the painting, we've painted all those side walls at the same time. But when we put our resin in, we will not be going straight to the top. I like it that you can still feel that it's been routed out. And when your resin cures, it will concave slightly, basically sink down. So I want to have this nice little lip of the routed out section. Okay, I'll get this nice and shiny as we can. And then when we come back, we're going to throw in literally white resin for all that background and a bit of orange in the beak. Okay, let's go and find some resin. Right, it's resin time. You can just see from that we've got a nice shine going down there with 3 or 4 coats of that spray lacquer varnish just to finish it off for me, and hopefully it'll just seal inside here a little bit better. Personally, I don't think it needs it. And you notice there that middle section on the nose, we've sorted that out with a little Sharpie pen. Just dab that on there, and that's cleared that up a lot better for what we need in our little project. today. Now the resin is Vista 1. I've used other resins in the past and they all basically do the same thing. Now this is a 1-to-1 mix, so 1 part A, your resin, mixed with the same amount of B you're adding. Some resins are 2-to-1, 3-to-1, so 3 times A to 1 part B. So keep an eye on that. And also some resins you'll mix by volume. This is by volume, same amount of each. Some resins you will weigh off with digital scales. Some resins are deep pour and craft resins. So do a little bit of research. Please have your gloves on. Do not follow me by example. I've never had any issues with resin on my skin and stuff. But if you're breathing it in, so you want a proper resin mask, proper gloves on, and some nice ventilation running through. Don't follow me by example for sure. Now the way I mix my resins, I use these little plastic party cups. They're ideal. They have little grooves up the side, and I'll count up so many small batches for me. So like this one here, B for the hardener, I'll go up 4, and I'll go up 4 for the resin, and then transfer B into A. Manufacturers do say transfer A and B into C, a third cup, something I've never done and I've never had any issues. These plastic beakers have got really thin now, so I apologise if you hear that crinkly noise. These used to be a lot thicker. Obviously everybody's cutting back with what they try to sell you. So I mix the resin off camera, and then for colour wise there is only the 2. Back to the same acrylics as before. We'll have an orange for the beak and a white for the rest of it. We'll pour all that in, and then we'll come along with our lighters. We have this big boy here, that's a bit savage, so you want to keep it moving quite quickly. And we have the smaller one, and the idea of the lighter is that literally your resin will get air bubbles, and we can just skim over like that once the resin's in, and it just helps all those bubbles come to the top. Now with this one, we're literally going to be just slightly off the top. When the resin cures, remember, it will shrink down concave slightly. But I don't want to go over the top, obviously, and we don't want it flush. I still want to be able to feel it's been routed out afterwards. Okay, so we're going to do orange first. Seems the smallest piece to do. So I'll mix up that resin off camera, and then when we come back, we can start filling this one in. So we don't need to wait for it to clear at all. It's not going to affect us. So orange first. They do say 10% of colour per the amount you've mixed. Personally myself, I'll just add a bit in, give it a mix round, and see what we've got. You can always add a little bit more should the colour not be strong enough. And like I said previously, that is the reason why we cover all the background. Should this orange be a little bit too weak, you will see the mess you've left behind when you've been painting those sidewalls. So that is the reason why I just find it easier with paint or stain just to cover the full piece. We want a nice strong orange, so I'm going to go a bit more. Like I say, I've never measured any quantities, and out of all my resin projects I've never had one that hasn't set or cured properly. So always follow your instructions. Right, we'll pour a little bit in. Remember, we have that little scoop on the back there we could use from these plastic knife and forks. But you better just pour in a little bit in, and you can see what it looks like. Now I'm still going to put a little bit more in there. That's not enough for me. So I'll top a bit more orange in, and then we'll speed things in, up shall I say, and then we can basically just start filling this one in. Right, that's the last of the white gone in. Now, personally myself, we maybe could put a little bit more white in, but if I can just show what we had left from the orange, 0, and for the white, I made 2 batches up. and they're both empty as well, so we're going to make that do. The only thing you will find with mixing different batches, sometimes the colours aren't quite right, so you'll end up putting a white on previous white and it might be a lot stronger colour, so therefore then you'll have to go around and mix it all in to match it up. So I'm going to leave that as it is. That's all filled in nicely, and as we went on we got our lighter, skimmed across the top like so, or with the smaller one obviously, and I'll come back and do this again in 5 minutes just to help any of those little air bubbles on their way. Okay, we'll leave this for a good 24 hours, get a nice cover for it, cover it over. Any flies, dust or anything, they will find it for sure. And then we'll come back in 24 hours and hopefully we'll see what we've got. Right, that's it. This little project is finished. Now it's less than 24 hours later. Personally, I would leave this for another 2 or 3 days. Resin manufacturers reckon 30 days to fully cure. I think that's a little bit over the top, but I am not a resin manufacturer. So this is basically the next day, and you can see from that everything's gone fine. But a couple of days certainly won't do it any harm for it to sit and just to make sure it's nice and solid. We had no issues whatsoever. Everything worked out fine. Been a quite different little project for me, this one. So there it is. I've no idea what it is. We're going to call it bird wall art, this one. And we routed it out on recycled pine. Remember, we used our CNC bits to do all our lines with. And then the clear out was those little end milling bits. I'll put some links in the description. They're just nice eBay or Amazon specials. Once we did all that, we tidied it up with that little flexi cable on the Dremel, remember, and a bit of sanding down. That just rounds those edges off. And if I remember rightly, with the resin, look, you can just more or less still see the raised areas. So we haven't gone right to the top, and it's all just gone down nicely. Painting wise, I went with the acrylic paints to paint it all with. Excuse me there, I'm just trying to think of something else to paint it all with. And then we'll be coming with the resin, which was Vista 1 resin. For me, I've used other resins and they all do the same thing. Just make sure you get the right resin for your project. And we also mixed in the acrylic paints with those. And for the framework itself, a nice bit of dark tea dye, stain, wood dye stuff. And that's it. And the full project itself comes in at 12.5 inches by 15 inches high. And I never did do the back on this one, but I did root out that little slit, if I can just show you again. Put a nice slit in there, and that's nearly 3/4 into that one, and that's plenty for hanging, no problem whatsoever with that. And that's it. Bird wall art, routed out on recycled pine, painted and inlaid with resin. Thank you very much for watching.